Hello, I'm your reader Mary, here with you today, August 5th, 2025, reading the New Bedford Standard Time. Let's start with the weather. Today's weather will be partly sunny, high of 84, low of 59. Wednesday will have times of clouds and sun, high of 80, low of 60. Thursday will get intervals of clouds and sun, high of 80 and a low of 54. Friday will be mostly sunny, high of 81, low of 59. And Saturday, partly sunny, high of 81 and a low of 63. Let's check out the front page. Youths may be among workers suspended after ICE checks out of New Bedford. At least 47 New Bedford Market Basket employees were suspended in July after a documentation check by Immigration Customs Enforcement. The immigration advocacy group Centro Comunitario de Trabajadores, reported, and about 15 of them may be unaccompanied youths who received services at New Bedford High School. That's according to the Standard Times. Immigrants Assistance Center staff are trying to check on their status, according to IAC President Helena De Silva Hughes. We work with unaccompanied youth at New Bedford High, and we were very much aware that a lot of the kids we were working with were working at Market Basket, said De Silva Hughes on Friday, August 1st. The estimation, De Silva Hughes said, is based upon IAC's Amigos program, which runs out of New Bedford High School and services immigrants categorized as, quote, unaccompanied youth. By the IAC's definition, this denotes children under age 18, not under physical custody of a legal guardian. De Silva Hughes explained that in a previous interview. Attempts to contact representatives for New Bedford Market Basket, located at 122 Sawyer Street, were not returned by press time. A Market Basket job application found online indicates the acceptance of applicants under 18 with a work permit. Suspended workers appear to be in fear. Since news broke of the suspensions at the New Bedford grocery store, the IAC has tried to reach out to those who've been serviced through the Amigos program and are known to have worked at Market Basket. But so far, none have answered or responded, De Silva Hughes said. We've been hearing that they're moving because they're afraid that now ICE knows where they live or lived and they might get picked up. De Silva Hughes said it is not known by IAC how many of the roughly 15 people were still working at Market Basket in New Bedford at the time of suspensions. According to information from the Centro Comunitario group, the suspensions began on July 21st as the result of an I-9 audit. So they're either moving away or just being really low-key, De Silva Hughes said, noting the prominent presence of Central American immigrants have been known to be among the Market Basket's workforce. You go to Market Basket and you know exactly who they are because of their profile. Several recent media reports have cited statements from Market Basket saying the suspended employees have the opportunity to mitigate issues with their legal status and return to work. As of Friday, CCT Director Adrian Ventura said several of the workers have contacted CCT since the suspensions, but none have indicated they've returned to their jobs. Requests for information from the Department of Homeland Security and ICE via the Boston Field Office and New Bedford Public Schools Central Administration were not yet returned. Immigrants advocate Market Basket suspensions came without warning. Ventura, who spoke with the Standard Times via translator on Friday, said the situation has been unfair for the workers because they were told out of the blue, without any sort of warning, not to return to work. Many are facing general unemployment, Ventura said, noting the suspended workers include people with kids, single fathers, single mothers. Some are supposed to be providing for their whole families, he said. ICE detainees have included those with legal status, De Silva Hughes says. According to De Silva Hughes, immigrants unaccompanied youth often qualify for juvenile visas and special work permits that would allow them to work legally in the United States as they go through the process of obtaining green cards. And while she's not sure whether or not the individuals in question had such clearances, even those who have acquired them haven't been immune to recent ICE activity, she said. What we're finding is even some people with working permits that are valid are getting picked up. Also among the detained have been people with valid green cards. She added, noting the IAC has noted an uptick in green card holders who've canceled international travel plans out of fear of not being allowed back in the United States. It's been very challenging at the center, just trying to deal with everything that's been happening, De Silva Hughes said, though noting an upcoming naturalization ceremony for 27 who will become citizens offers something positive to look forward to. While in the past the IAC has held such ceremonies every 3 months, she said the one set for August 29 will be the first of 2025. How can you help? Ventura said CCT's online fundraiser, posted on GoFundMe.com, is actively seeking donations. CCT needs your donation now more than ever so we can support these workers and their families, along with over 40 community members who are still in ICE detention. As noted on the GoFundMe page, the fundraiser was started following ICE's March 11 detainments of 3 Guatemalans at the Minuteman Auto Wash, 2351 Purchase Street in New Bedford. Since then, there have been several additional ICE raids in our community, including 2 that have involved physical violence. The page reads, "We know that the government has its eye on communities like ours with large numbers of vulnerable immigrants." According to the page, donations will help workers and their families pay for rent, utility bills, food, bond for detainees, and legal counsel. As of Sunday afternoon, $21,020 had been raised between 294 donations. The page sets a fundraising goal of $24,000. To donate, visit gofundme.com/F/funds-for-families-affected-by-ICE-enforcement. Mass State Senate votes to ban cell phones in schools. The Massachusetts State Senate has passed a bill that would require all public schools to ban students' use of phones during learning time. The bill, if it becomes law, would have the State Department of Education create a model policy that schools could follow and require public schools in grades K-12 to prohibit the use of personal electronic devices on school grounds during the school day. The measure passed 38-2 on Thursday, with only Republican State Senator Kelly Dooner of Taunton and State Senator Ryan Fatman of Sutton opposed. Electronic devices banned include personal cell phones, tablets, laptops, smartwatches. It would allow only school-issued or sanctioned devices used for legitimate educational purpose. The bill now goes before the House of Representatives. If approved by the House, it would go before Governor Maura Healey, who has said she supports a statewide cell phone ban. The bill is S-2561, titled An Act to Promote Student Learning and Mental Health. What cell phone policies do New Bedford area schools have? New Bedford High School, as well as the Keith, Normand, and Roosevelt Middle Schools, will already be implementing a cell phone ban in the fall. At Bishop Stang High School in North Dartmouth, the cell phone policy states cell phones must remain in student backpacks throughout the school day, including during breaks and lunchtime. At Fairhaven Public Schools, cell phone use is not allowed without appropriate approval from a teacher or a staff member. It currently allows cell phones to be used in the cafeteria and during lunch only. Acushnet Public Schools does not allow cell phones or other personal electronic devices unless it's for an approved reason, and students are required to keep them out of sight during the day. Old Rochester Regional School District requires students to power off cell phones and store them in lockers during the school day. Westport High School's handbook says cell phones must be turned off and kept out of sight during class time. What are the reasons for a cell phone ban? The American Federation of Teachers released a statement on Thursday in support of the ban, saying it's becoming harder and harder to keep our students engaged as educators are forced to compete for their attention with the looming distraction of cell phones and social media. The legislation passed by the Senate takes a common-sense approach, providing our schools with the tools and guidance they need to create cell phone-free learning environments in a way that works best for their students and educators. When would the statewide ban on cell phones in schools take place? The Senate bill would require school districts to adopt a ban before the start of the 26-27 school year. Are there exceptions to the ban? Yes. The bill allows exceptions for students who need to use devices as part of their IEP or who need devices as a disability accommodation or for other reasons. The bill says policies can include targeted exemptions, including for emergencies, multilingual learners, student health, or other reasons. Indulge in oysters at these Greater New Bedford restaurants. A delectable treasure from the sea, oysters are a fresh and briny delicacy that provides a deliciously creamy bite. These coastal favorites not only taste divine, but are also good for you. Packed with protein, vitamins, and minerals, you don't have to feel guilty about indulging in these mollusks. They're beneficial for heart health, immune system function, and brain health. Eaten raw on the half shell, baked in Rockefeller, fried in a roll, or in a chowder, oysters are being celebrated on August 5th for National Oyster Day. It's the perfect time to see what all the hype is about and try out new ways to enjoy oysters in Greater New Bedford. Check out these restaurants in the area that are shucking fresh oysters for you to taste on today, National Oyster Day. First, Farmhouse Tacos. At Bittersweet Farm, you can get your oysters fried and put in a delectable taco. Get crispy fried oysters in 3 flour tortillas, soft taco with shredded cabbage, corn salsa, lime aioli, and your choice of fries or slaw for $22. It can also come as a taco slaw bowl with white and red cabbage, crisp iceberg, sliced avocado, corn mango salsa, chipotle aioli. Head to 438 Main Road, Westport to try it today. Shelfie worthy. If you're going to go indulge in seafood, you might as well go all the way with the shelfie-worthy Saco Tavern. This seafood tower offers 6 oysters, 6 little neck clams, 6 jumbo shrimp cocktails, 3 lobster claws, and tuna tataki for $69.95. It's on the menu at 136 Huddleston Avenue in Fairhaven. Oyster Rockefeller. Start your meal off with the Oyster Rockefeller at Blue Point Restaurant. Choose between 4 for $12 or 6 for $17. Oysters on a half shell, baked with a topping of bacon, spinach, and Parmesan cheese. Drive over to 6 Dayton Street, Acushnet, for this delight. Then there's grilled oysters. Take the scenic drive to Casta's Seaside Bites and Bar, 7 Cottage Street, Marion, to try a new oyster dish. Get the grilled oysters, which are 6 oysters, topped with Mexican chorizo, cotija, lemon, and a fried saltine crumb for $21. Captain Sampler. Order the Captain Sampler at the Black Whale for a tasty starter. For $54, you get 12 oysters, 4 cocktail shrimp, and 4 little necks. This refreshing appetizer is waiting for you at 104 Co-op Wharf, New Bedford. Fried oysters? Well, when you have a craving for fried oysters, try Surf Cove Surf and Turf. At 1500 Cove Road, New Bedford, they're shucking oysters, frying them to perfection, and selling them by the pint for $17.99 or the quart for $31.99. Oyster shooters? Well, National Oyster Day is the best way to try an oyster shooter at Cisco Kitchen and Bar. It's a fresh oyster served with a shot of scallion, tobiko, ponzu, and sake. Get refreshed at 1482 East Rodney French Boulevard, New Bedford. West Island oysters? Get oysters in their simplest form at Little Moss Restaurant. You get 6 freshly shucked oysters with a beach rose mignonette and a lemon for $22. This mouth-watering treat is available at 6 Bridge Street, South Dartmouth. Hot honey fried oysters. Try the hot honey fried oysters at Turk's Seafood. Enjoy panko-crusted oysters tossed in hot honey, topped with a scallion aioli for $17. This tasty meal can be ordered at 83 Marion Road in Mattapoisett. And here we are at the middle. We have 2 obituaries. One for Amanda Berta Maria Salome, 92 years old, from New Bedford, passed away July 29th. Obertine Lopes Funeral Home for arrangements. The service will be August 5th at 10 a.m., and it will be at Our Lady of Mount Carmel Church, and the interment will be at Rural Cemetery. And the next is for Francis J. Hart, 84, of Dartmouth, passed away at home on Sunday, August 3rd, after a long illness. He was the husband of Judith Sylvia Hart, born and raised in New Bedford, the son of the late Thomas L. and Sarah Hart. He lived in Dartmouth for most of his life and attended New Bedford Vocational School, graduated from New Bedford High School, and he was formerly employed as a sales representative for Lesco Tobacco and Candy Company, also for R.J. Reynolds Tobacco Company until his retirement. He was in the Massachusetts Army National Guard and was called to active duty with the Army in 1961 during the Berlin crisis. He was an avid golfer and a former member of the Country Club of New Bedford, the Whaling City Golf Course. His funeral will be held on Wednesday, August 6th at 9 a.m. from the Sanders Dwyer Funeral Home, 495 Park Street, New Bedford, followed by his funeral mass at St. Mary's Church, South Dartmouth, at 10 a.m. Burial will be in St. John's Cemetery. Visiting hours will be on Tuesday, August 5th, 4 to 7. In lieu of flowers, remembrances may be made to South Coast Health and Home, 200 Mill Road, Fairhaven, Mass. 02719. For online condolence book, please visit www.sandersdwyer, that's SAUNDERSDWYER.com. Heat, mental illness, a bad combination. Patients face challenges on a warming planet. From USA Today. One of Annie Carroll's patients often sits in extremely hot rooms with the lone fan he owns humming at the other end of his apartment. He has schizophrenia, which makes him less able to register when he becomes overheated. That's one of the reasons people with schizophrenia are at higher risk for heat-related death. Summer can be an especially harsh time for patients with severe mental illness. That's according to Carol, a psychiatric nurse practitioner and director of behavioral health services at Outreach Community Health Centers in Milwaukee. Many have trouble regulating their body temperature or, like Carol's patient, even realizing something bad is taking place. Psychotropic medicines, essential to manage symptoms, can contribute. The heat can create new mental health problems due to a confluence of factors, from disrupting sleep to overtaxing the body. Carol said staying cool amid record-high temperatures can be a challenge for patients who are low income, older, live in old housing, or have physical disabilities. Carol works with patients to ensure they have a heat plan in place, but the issue has become a global concern. And a recent study in Current Environmental Health Reports found that the world is not prepared to respond to the mental health consequences of extreme heat brought on by climate change. Heat health action plans, according to the World Health Organization, consider climate adaptation strategies like meteorological early warning systems, improvements to housing and urban planning, and crucially, the ability of healthcare and social systems to respond. But according to the new report, fewer than one-third of 83 heat health action plans across 24 countries, including 10 plans in the United States, acknowledge the mental health toll of extreme or prolonged heat. Only 1/5 of the plans laid out specific actions to respond to increased hospitalizations for mental health disorders. Just 6% of the global heat health plans mention suicide, despite studies showing exposure to heat increases suicide risk. Less than 4% of the plans consider addiction. Less than 5% specify actions for people with depression, and just 10% anticipate anxiety issues. Bipolar disorders, psychosis, schizophrenia, trauma, and stress-related disorders show up in only 1% of the heat health plans. Connecting the dots. The connection between mental health and extreme heat is relatively new, but it's a big one, said Jonathan Patz, a professor at the University of Wisconsin-Madison. After several days of 100-degree-plus temperatures, leading to more than 600 deaths in British Columbia in June 2021, environmental epidemiologists made a staggering discovery. People with schizophrenia, less than 1% of the population, made up more than 13% of the people who died from heat. Frankly, we don't know why they're so vulnerable. But for people with schizophrenia, there's a level of disorganization, a need to layer on clothing and not registering temperatures, said Emily Walls, a psychiatrist in Waukesha, Wisconsin. They're also more socially isolated, so if there's an alert, they may not hear about it. People with schizophrenia are disproportionately more likely to live under the poverty threshold, adding to their risk of succumbing to heat-related illness and death. Heat can exacerbate other human factors too. Walls remembered when one of her patients came in distressed after a fierce argument with her boyfriend that verged on violence. The couple didn't own an air conditioner, and it had been an oppressively hot day and similarly hot night. Lack of sleep and chronic discomfort can shatter someone's ability to solve problems and temper moods and emotions. Nationally, rural adults identified weather as the second most common cause of their mental health struggles, according to a 2019 rural stress polling presentation by the American Farm Bureau Federation. Sheena Cook-Folsgang, Regional Community Health Coordinator in southeast Wisconsin, said rural farmers are experiencing higher rates of depression, substance abuse disorder, suicide attempts, and suicide than the general population, not due to the heat directly, but to the impacts heat and extreme weather events more generally can have on their livelihood, namely crops. Shrishti Sardana, an assistant professor of psychology at the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee, describes the intersection of environmental factors, poverty, and violence as a syndemic, a term she uses to refer to cascading health and social impacts. It may be tempting to assume more air conditioners can solve the problem of extreme heat, but Pat said it would simply trade problems as long as we're relying on fossil fuels. In 2018, a study Pat said he and his colleagues found using air conditioning to adapt to extreme heat would add nearly 4% fine particulate matter and 7% ozone to the atmosphere by the end of the century, leading to an additional 1,000 deaths per year. Renewable and clean energy from solar and wind would not only be feasible, it would be cost-effective. Of course, federal winds are blowing against that. On July 29, the EPA announced it would seek to rescind an Obama-era funding that has been central to regulating greenhouse emissions and fighting climate change. That makes one of Sardana's suggestions all the more challenging. She thinks communities can do a better job of conveying information about climate change. Much like vaccination campaigns use churches and barbershops, and having religious leaders and other trusted sources talk about heat-related impacts of climate change and solutions can help spread awareness. Another solution rejected in multiple Wisconsin budgets is a larger investment in community support services and programs. Walls said these services literally go door to door, if needed, to provide care during extreme weather events. Over the long term, Carol believes other investments in communities can help. More trees, more affordable housing, better transportation all play a role in keeping people out of harm's way. But much of climate mitigation falls on state legislatures to invest more in resilient communities. Texas Dems leave state to block redistricting vote. In a high-stakes move, Democratic lawmakers in Texas left the state to deny Republicans the quorum needed to redraw the state's 38 congressional districts. The national GOP is seeking to protect its narrow House majority in the 2026 midterm elections. Republicans hold a 220 to 212 lead in the House of Representatives, and 3 Democratic-held seats are vacant after members' deaths. President Donald Trump has championed the redistricting plan, telling reporters he expects the effort to yield as many as 5 additional Republican members in the House. In a video shot in front of an airport, Texas Democratic State Rep James Tallarico, said the redistricting plan amounted to rigging the 2026 election. If you're seeing this video, my Democratic colleagues and I have just left our beloved state to break quorum and stop Trump's redistricting power grab, Tallarico said in a video posted on X. Several Texas Democrats said on X they were headed to Illinois. A smaller contingent traveled to Boston and to Albany, New York. Texas Governor Greg Abbott, a Republican, threatened more than 50 liberal lawmakers with expulsion from the state house if they did not return to Austin by 3 p.m. local time. Democrats hatched a deliberate plan not to show up for work for the specific purpose of abdicating the duties of their office and thwarting the chamber's business. Abbott wrote that in a letter on August 3rd. That amounts to an abandonment or a forfeiture of an elected state office. Abbott, a former Texas Attorney General, added that the representatives may also have committed felonies. Texas House Democrats responded to the governor with a 4-word statement: "Come and take it." The Republican State Leadership Committee accused the absent legislators of neglecting their responsibility in office. Texas Democrats need to return home immediately and stop wasting taxpayer money on their media tour and work collaboratively with Republicans in Austin to advance the future of Texas. That was a statement from the group's communications director, Mason DePalma. States are required to draw new redistricting maps every 10 years based on the census. The Texas map was passed just 4 years ago by the Republican-dominated legislature. While mid-cycle redistricting occasionally takes place, it's usually prompted by a change in power in the legislature. The Texas map is already considered significantly skewed. Under current lines, Republicans control 25 of Texas House seats. Nearly 2/3 of the districts in that state went for Trump last year by a 56% to 42% margin. Redistricting experts have said the plan could backfire if Republicans try and squeeze too many seats out of the map. Texas Republicans have pursued redistricting in special state legislative session that will also address funding for flood prevention in the wake of the deadly July 4th flash flooding that killed more than 130 people. Greenhouse gas reversal brings up questions and concerns. The Trump administration has billed its plan to undo U.S. climate regulation as a way to cut costs for industries, but it may backfire by forcing automakers, utilities, and manufacturers into a future of regulatory uncertainty and litigation risk, according to lawyers and trade groups. Environmental Protection Agency Administrator Lee Zeldin said the move would end limits on greenhouse gas pollution from vehicle tailpipes, power plants, smokestacks, and other sources, and would save companies $52 billion in environmental compliance costs. But the companies have already invested heavily in reducing emissions to meet government limits. I think what the administration has missed most of the industry has already retrofitted for regulations, according to Camille Panu, an associate law professor at Columbia University. The industry did want deregulation, but not through this vehicle. Over the last decade, manufacturers have announced $197.6 billion in investments in the U.S. EV and battery manufacturing facilities, according to the Environmental Defense Fund. This has been the New Bedford Standard Times. Today, August 5th, 2025. I'm your reader, Mary, wishing you good health, be well, and we'll talk again next week.